Hi, I'm Professor Wheeler at the University of South Florida School of Accountancy. In this video, we will be talking about e-business, which is doing business over the internet.
Electronic business systems, or EBiz. In this session, we'll talk about web services. When we talk about web services, we're basically talking about outsourcing something to the web or the internet. That is a transfer of a business function from the firm to a third-party provider using the internet. Examples are payroll, which is a small-scale example where a company communicates its payroll data to the payroll provider. So how many hours are worked, what the wages are, etc., etc. And then the payroll provider will generate the checks, probably direct deposit. A larger example are ERP systems, some ERP systems, which instead of being installed inside a company itself, are kept outside the company in the provider, the ERP provider, and then all of the data is piped out of the company into the ERP provider, who integrates it into an ERP system. And this is mainly for small companies, maybe medium size. It's not feasible yet for a large company. Another example is connectivity between business partners, where you have a third party ensure or provide that connection between the various business partners. For example, an SOA, service-oriented architecture, or a VAN, a value-added network. Okay, we want to go over especially three items: EDI, SOA, XBRL. Some more IT definitions and acronyms to be remembered. EDI, electronic data interchange, is basically a connection between a company and a business partner, especially a supplier. SOA, service-oriented architecture. So this is an example of a third party providing for connectivity between companies. And XBRL, Extensible Business Reporting Language, is a language used for financial reports and other types of business reports. And we'll see how these are interconnected as we go along. Okay, let's start with EDI, Electronic Data Interchange. So in its barest format, as we see here, it's simply one company talking to another company, company A, company B. Company A is the parent company, B might be the supplier. So A needs more inventory. It generates in its computer system purchase order through the purchase system application. So purchase order is generated. This then is translated into EDI format through translation software, then sent on to the communication application here, sent over the internet, and then the process is basically reversed, translated out of EDI into a sales order that can be processed by the vendor here, the supplier. And the reason this is done is this EDI language is highly specialized coding, so that when company A orders something, it can be set down in exact detail, and then that the receiving company, the supplier, can translate it out in exact detail and know precisely what company A is wanting. So there'd be no mistake about sending the wrong product, wrong inventory. But notice here there are no controls. So this, of course, is not a good setup. You need controls. You need internal controls around the system for various reasons. You do not want, for example, false orders to be placed into this internet connection, or orders to be misrouted through some hacker intervention. So let's put in controls. First of all, we want to make sure we have a good audit trail. We need to keep a record of each step in the process. The purchase order, the EDI translation, the communication package that is sent out, and on the supply side here, the same stuff be kept as an audit trail, paper trail, so to speak. But it's not paper, it's digital. Alright, so that's a good control, but we still maybe have a problem here. If the internet is wide open, then we again are vulnerable to hackers and other people who might want to misappropriate our assets. So one solution is for these companies themselves to get involved with encryption and firewalls and passwords and login procedures. That's common. Another approach is to outsource it as a web service. And here we talked about our value-added networks, our VANs. So here we're outsourcing our connectivity function to this VAN. So they worry about encryption, security, passwords, firewalls, and all of those things. Of course, we have to pay them to do that, but it saves us the cost of having to do it ourselves inside companies A and B. So now we have a fairly secure system with good internal controls. We have an audit trail. We have secure communication link. There are two basic approaches to web services: XML and SOA. XML, Extensible Markup Language, is used to develop software applications that support integration of different types of business software. In other words, everything is put into XML. We develop our applications using XML from the beginning. So everybody's using the same language, so everybody can talk together. Another approach, SOA, Service-Oriented Architectures. These typically use web services to implement the integration by using reusable legacy components. So in this case, we do not have a common language for all the applications like XML. Instead of translating everything into a common language, we have SOA be the translator for us. So we talk together using different languages through the SOA. So let's look at a nice example here, a nice illustration of SOA Meta-Model. And as you can see, it's just layer upon layer of software. You don't see XML in here. The XML approach would take all of these lines and translate them at some point into XML before they're sent off to their final destination. But here we have different databases using different database languages, different data structures, other internet services that we're getting data from, new services in our company, older legacy system components with their older databases. But we don't worry about the fact that directly they're incompatible. They cannot talk to each other because we send them up through this SOA series of software translations, put them into a form that can then be used by whoever needs it at the destination. XML, XBRL, and EDI. So here we're going to put all these things together, show how they interrelate, and we can add SOA. So remember, SOA and XML were the two basic approaches we talked about with web services. Either translate into XML or use SOA as a translator after the fact. XBRL, Extensible Business Reporting Language, is a subset of XML, Extensible Markup Language, which in turn developed out of HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. And HTML is the internet language that makes the internet possible as we know it today. XML is for business functions like reordering inventory. XBRL is a subset of XML specifically for the business reporting side of businesses, like creating financial statements. XML and XBRL and EDI, these should be thought of more as software, as formatting languages, and not so much as hardware or network infrastructures, communication infrastructures, as is mistakenly done often. EDI is often used as synonymous for private networks and XML, XBRL for the internet, which is not true. XML, XBRL, EDI messages can be sent as easily over the internet as over a private network, and vice versa. So what's the difference? EDI tends to be specialized in certain industries. EDI is older than XML. And as we talked about with the EDI translation we looked at earlier, has very specific codes for industries so that they will receive exactly what they ordered down to the smallest detail. However, this detailed industry specialized language makes it difficult to compare EDI information across industries. So it's not really a good language for business reporting because it's not universal enough. So we have XML, Extensible Markup Language, specifically developed as a universal business language. Everybody uses the same definitions, which makes it good for comparison between reports, between industries, for business reporting, and thus XBRL as a subsystem of XML. However, some industries do not find that it's not specialized enough for their particular needs. So there's still a tug of war between EDI and XML. A lot of industries want to stay with EDI for the specialized uses that are needed, whereas XML is favored by banks, accounting firms, by the SEC. In fact, the SEC requires that companies file their annual reports, their financial statements, using XBRL to get away from paper or PDF environments. So here we see a paper financial statement. Looks like a balance sheet on our left. All right. And here we see the same financial statement in XBRL format. And as you can see, it's just a lot of computer coding, a lot of language. But you'll notice here these various accounts like accounts receivable, inventory. The thing that makes XBRL especially universal and useful is that these are predefined account definitions. So whether you're health industry or manufacturer of cars, you will use the same definitions of cash and cash equivalents, of inventories, of deferred income taxes. Of course, you cannot read this directly. So just like HTML needs a monitor to translate it into something we can use and look at and work with, so the same with XBRL. We have XBRL viewers or readers, and here we see where our prior statement has been translated back into something that is readable by people. Right? And a very useful thing here about XBRL is that you can pull from these computer filings, you can pull various accounts out of different industries and put them into one reader, whereas if you're dealing with paper or PDF, you'd have to probably rekey all that information into some kind of spreadsheet or an application, which only introduces errors into the process and is also inefficient. All right, that concludes our talk on web services. Thank you.